Has QBE changed their underwriting conditions for flood and storm-prone areas in Australia, i.e. by refusing to write policies or by placing conditions on mitigation?
Flood exposure is prevalent for us in Australia, Asia, the UK and North America. We're constantly looking at the appropriateness of price, the terms and conditions we should apply, how we work with government and how we work with authorities to try and mitigate against flood and structure the covers appropriately. We've not ceased providing insurance in any specific areas, but where we think there are particular exposures that repeat, then that will have an impact on the price and the terms and conditions that we would set for the product.
QBE made political donations in 2014 and 2015 for the first time in 5 years in Australia to the Labor and Liberal Party. Why was that?
There are no direct political donations that are being made in Australia.
It's registered on the Australian.
Yeah. On occasions we would be at events where politicians would be present, and we may well have taken a table at that event where some guests would be present. So it's more related activities within the business community than it is bespoke political sponsorship or endorsement. I mean, we remain neutral as far as politics are concerned, either in Australia or elsewhere in the world.
So why would that be recorded by the Australian Electoral Commission?
Because we're obliged to. Anything that's got any association where politicians are present,
but
we would
if
be
you're
obliged to
making
make
a donation
declaration.
to a charity, why would it be recorded as a political donation?
Simply because politicians are present.
In September last year, the Bank of England Prudential Regulatory Authority published a report, The Impact of Climate Change on the UK Insurance Sector, which identified 3 key ways in which climate change impacts might be expected to arise: physical risks, transition risks and liability risks. Has QBE considered these risks, and will they report on the risks and costs that climate change poses to their business and to their shareholders?
So we consider climate-related risks and exposures each and every year, both in terms of the impact that we think it will actually have on our business, the change in structure it has on our products, the affordability of insurance, and whether and where we can provide insurance. And I think you see in our annual report we set aside allowances that we think are fair and appropriate for climate risks. Interestingly for us, the assessments that we've made in terms of changing risk profile have been slightly overestimated. So in the last 5 years, somewhat unusually, the cost of climate and weather-related claims has been less than we thought they would be, and certainly less than our allowances for the period 2011 through 2015.
And also the liability risks?
Yeah, the liability risks are really related. Again, I mean, that's where we need to have an association with the bodies in the insurance industry and also government. So, you know, often the liability risks are related to government action or inaction. So we spend a fair bit of time with the relevant authorities around the world discussing with them how we should relate to climate and mitigate against exposures that we think exist, and also challenging government to accept the appropriate responsibility on their part.
Following the release of the report, 15 CEOs from UK insurance companies penned an open letter to the Bank of England Governor, Mark Carney, expressing the view that climate change poses one of the greatest challenges to the long-term health of global economies and societies, and as such demands urgent action. The group voluntarily offered to help identify ways the insurance industry can support the social transition to a low-carbon, climate-resilient future. QBE was not a signatory to that letter, even though it operates in the UK. Why not?
Yeah, I think we've got to be... My view is you've got to be careful on it. I think, you know, you've probably read what I've written on the subject, so I'm pretty public on my views on climate change. I would rather that we spent our time and energy really putting the effort into influencing government and actually influencing our policyholders in the way they act and behave. And I believe, and our executive team believes, that that's where we should be focusing our energies rather than necessarily writing open letters to newspapers.
And I thought it was to the Governor of England.
All right, thank you very much.
QBE claims to incorporate environmental risk into its underwriting. After the catastrophic BP Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010, were underwriting standards tightened?
It's important actually thinking about who you do and who you don't want to insure. So if you go back to the Deepwater Horizon loss, I think we would have had fairly strong views on some of the risk management practices being adopted by some of the parties involved in that particular incident. Our views to be really quite careful and thoughtful in a world that needs to change. So, you can take a view of saying, well, let's ensure nobody that has any association with energy, oil, gas, related logistics, the list can go on and on and on. Our insurance interests in the energy-related space equate to about 2% of our premium income. So our view is to be thoughtful of the clients we want to partner with, and we are looking for businesses that are prepared to change, are recognising the same challenges that all of us do in the room around our expectations of the future of the planet and the future of impact of carbon or fossil fuels on all that we do. And there are good businesses out there who are incredibly thoughtful about the way in which they will behave going forward. So we want to partner with them, try and help them develop their change in energy practices, help them with risk control measures, and in the event that there is a loss, just be certain that we can be there to help them repair that loss as quickly and as effectively as we can. So our view, and I mean it's a view to be opposed, not everybody would agree with it, is to be thoughtful about who we partner with and help them and support them in the changes that they want to make.
How can they consider be good corporate citizens that a reputable company like QBE could be, associated with, despite what you're saying there?
We didn't insure BP would be the short answer to the question that you're asking.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Yes, that's
You,
good.
you had a second question?
Yes, I have. Does QBE have any involvement in the exploration and potential production of offshore oil in the Great Australian Bight?
Not that I'm particularly aware of. If it is, it would be minimal. As I said, in the aggregate, the volume of premiums that we would secure from energy-related activities is less than 2% of what we do. So I'm not aware, but I will check for you.
The first is, you said earlier that you preferred to lobby government for action on climate change rather than sign open letters to the Bank of England. Can you shed a bit of light on the kind of climate policies that you've lobbied for?
Yeah, two areas really. I mean, we've been very heavily involved with the Insurance Council of Australia in the flood mitigation plans and discussions that are taking place that, we think are very important if we benchmark the activities here that we've seen in North America and the UK, and similarly through the Association of British Insurers in the UK, similar actions, which I think you're seeing the results of in the UK now with increased flood mitigation programs that are being put in place by the UK government. So our sense is that our voice is stronger if we can participate with the industry. I think the industry is reasonably well aligned in their thoughts, where we can actually get appropriate action.
So mitigation rather than emissions reduction then?
It's got to be a bit of both, hasn't it? And it's my earlier comment of, you're better to try and work with the client base you've got as well to try and understand what their challenges are in business and see if we can help them with the broader experience and knowledge we've got across an industry as to how they can improve their safety or improve the measures they're taking to reduce consumption or exposure to the planet.
In January, the California Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones said he'd asked insurers operating in that state to voluntarily divest from thermal coal assets and require insurers operating in that state to disclose what they're invested in terms of thermal coal. Does QBE intend to divest from thermal coal across its investment portfolio?
So the answer to the California question was zero. In terms of our investments that have, I guess, any association with areas that would not appeal to you, it's currently less than 1%. We've got no strategic intent to increase investment in that area and have not felt the need, therefore, to have a policy.
Would it not be easy to divest then if it's only less than 1%?
It's so de minimis, is negligible in terms of our interest.